Krishna, everyone. Today we are reading from Krishna book, chapter 7, in preparation for the upcoming Janmashtami festival. Is it okay if we do the invocation to Krishna book first? Krishna, Krishna. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Okay, together. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Pahimam. Hare Krishna. Chapter 7, the salvation of Trinavarta. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is always full with 6 opulences, namely complete wealth, complete strength, complete fame, complete knowledge, complete beauty, and complete renunciation. The Lord appears in different complete eternal forms of incarnation. The conditioned soul has immense opportunity to hear about the transcendental activities of the Lord in these different incarnations. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Janma karma chame divyam. The pastimes and activities of the Lord are not material, they are beyond the material conception. And the conditioned soul can benefit by hearing such uncommon activities. Hearing is an opportunity to associate with the Lord. To hear His activities is to evolve one's transcendental nature simply by hearing. The conditioned soul has a natural aptitude to hear something about other conditioned souls in the form of fiction, drama, and novel. That inclination to hear something about others may be utilized in hearing the pastimes of the Lord. Then one can immediately evolve his transcendental nature. Krishna's pastimes are not only beautiful, they are also very pleasing to the mind. So I'll keep mentioning a few things as we read along. So right now, we know this verse in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam, evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva dehang punarjanma naiti mameti swarjuna. So Krishna says very simply, one who knows about my transcendental nature of birth and activities, so when he leaves this current body, he attains me. There is no doubt to this, Arjuna. So one could think in a very simplistic manner, is that all it takes to attain, go back to Godhead, just to know about Krishna, just to know about his transcendental nature, his birth? Is there all to it? What if someone just comes to class one day and hears that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Okay, that's all I know. Am I qualified enough to go back to Godhead? Yeah, it's not just being aware of it, but is actually realizing that knowledge. So what it means is, even if you just hear it, you're not actually knowing the nature of Krishna's pastimes. Knowing Krishna's pastimes, the transcendent nature of it, actually means that we understand he is God. Then what do we do with our life? And we understand that we are also servants of him. We are also related to him. And when we act in that nature of service, that is actually knowing the transcendental nature of Krishna's pastimes and activities. And so when we live a life full of that, then tyaktva dehang punarjanma. So when we live a life full of that and then we leave this body, then we guarantee that we can go back to Krishna. So that's what it means. And also, I think it's very interesting, it's mentioned that we all have an inclination to hear about something. Our mind is always attracted to reading celebrity gossip. If you're not devoted to Krishna consciousness, we want to read about what happens in the life of famous people, the president, what is happening in politics, all over America and the world. We want to hear something. We want to know something. But what will that knowledge or what will that awareness give us? Eventually, it's related to the body, which is temporary. And we are knowing about these famous people, and eventually one day we read, let's say they were suffering from mental depression and they left their body. And then how do we get inspired by reading the lives of these so-called famous people? It eventually does not contribute to our well-being. But if we divert that natural inclination or natural aptitude to hear something when we hear about Krishna, that actually like benefits us like immensely. That causes our well-being and that creates some attraction towards Krishna. So I remember that when I was a teenager, I had an aptitude to read a lot. So I would read like these fiction novels, like in 2-3 days I would finish all these like books, like mystery novels or whatever they were. And then, so my dad would see me reading them and he would just like kind of be sarcastic, like, what are you getting out of reading that? Like I see you like all day, like in summer vacation, just in your bed and reading these books, like what are you getting that? And then I couldn't really appreciate what he was saying. But slowly, like as I started appreciating Krishna consciousness more, then I realized that taste actually slowly disappeared. I realized this is the same thing over and over again. There's some kind of like wrong that has happened and some way twisted or another, the hero, the protagonist solves it and that's the end of the day. But then when we read Krishna's pastimes, there's so much more variety to it. You could actually say that all the fiction and non-novel that is there in the world, they've all like been inspired from all the multitude of stories that we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam. Like there are so many parallels that I've heard that all the fiction movies that are being created in some way, they're the stories I mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the root of everything is Krishna's pastimes. So when we develop an attraction to hearing Krishna's pastimes, they're not only beautiful, it says they're very pleasing to the mind. Like we feel very happy, we internally feel very satisfied. I don't think we get the same kind of feeling when we read fiction novels and mystery novels, anything of the mundane nature, and we read gossip and all such things. We can all kind of relate to that in some way. Thank you. Okay, I'll continue reading. If someone takes advantage of hearing the pastimes of the Lord, the material contamination of dust accumulated in the heart due to long association with material nature can be immediately cleansed. Lord Chaitanya also instructed that simply by hearing the transcendental name of Lord Krishna, one can cleanse the heart of all material contamination. There are different processes for self-realization, but this process of devotional service, of which hearing is the most important function, when adopted by any conditioned soul, will automatically cleanse him of the material contamination and enable him to realize his real constitutional position. Conditional life is due to his contamination only, and as soon as it is cleared off, then naturally the dormant function of the living entity, rendering service to the Lord, awakens. By developing his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, one becomes eligible to create friendship with the devotees. I'll just read that line again. By developing his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, one becomes eligible to create friendship with the devotees. Maharaj Parikshit recommended from practical experience that everyone try to hear about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. This Krishna treatise is meant for that purpose, and the reader may take advantage of it to attain the ultimate goal of human life. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, descends to this material world and displays his activities just like an ordinary man. Unfortunately, the impersonalists or the atheistic class of men consider Krishna to be an ordinary man like themselves, and so they deride him. Can you remember the Bhagavad Gita verse, Manushim Tanumashritam Parambhavam Ajananto Mam Bhutam Maheshwaram. Yeah. Fools and rascals, like they deride Krishna thinking that he has just a body like us. They sometimes quote this phrase from Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think, Nara Vapu Tahara Sharira, like, okay, he has a body like that of a human being. So he is like one of us. He's just a great man, just a man with some supernatural abilities, and we could have someone else also be like that. So it's nothing transcendental about him. So this is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord himself when he says, Avajananti Mam Mudha. The Mudhas or rascals take Krishna to be an ordinary man or a slightly more powerful man out of their great misfortune. They cannot accept him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes such unfortunate persons misrepresent themselves as incarnations of Krishna without referring to the authorized scriptures. Then we get into the story a little bit. But before that, one other, there's so much philosophy packed in these points by Srila Prabhupada. This line really struck out to me. By developing his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, one becomes eligible to create friendship with the devotees. So this theme of friendship with the devotees, it really strikes out to me because I was born and brought up in a devotee family. My parents became devotees in ISKCON a couple of years before I was born. So I was always around this philosophy, this practice of chanting Krishna's names and going to the temple and serving the devotees. But still I could not internalize that this is my own path. When I finally left home and went to college, I felt like finally there's no one to look at what I'm doing. No one's telling me to do this is what you have to do. So I tried to enjoy that freedom because I still could not think that this Krishna consciousness method is my own path. Through my conversation with my friends, they would make me feel like you're only doing this because your parents are doing it. If you're born in a different family, you would not be doing it. That means that this is not something you're meant to do. If you choose to do something else, you could choose to enjoy like us. That's the age, early 20s, when all my friends were also away from home. They started doing drugs and intoxication and all this. So I had all this opportunity to engage in that because what I needed was, at that age, I needed friendships, and that's all. All the friendships I could get was from what you could say, quote unquote, karmi people. I went to a public school, so all my friends were karmi people, and their parents were regular working class people. And so although I had this amazing philosophy around me, I had association of so many wonderful devotees. They would come to our house and give classes, and we'd get to serve them. Still, I felt like one thing that was missing was some youth association, some peer association. And I felt like I was always the odd one out in my friend group. But finally, when I moved to Krishna House in Gainesville, I came there just for a summer, and I didn't even know such a thing existed. I just came for an internship, and I found out that there's this Krishna House program, and I stayed there for a couple of months. Then I finally felt like I have people who are my age, and then I was not the odd one out anymore. Then I was feel like I belong here. All these people, they're just taking up Krishna consciousness. I feel like, okay, if I'm born in this family and I'm doing it, maybe this is just dogmatic. But seeing all these Western people who have completely starting from new, and they're so enthusiastic in practicing devotional service. Every year we would have someone who would come fresh from the campus, a student, and who is living in the dorms, and then he hears about the programs and he comes, and then after a few classes, few times in the ashram, they want to move into the ashram. So seeing that transformation made me feel like there's something more deep in this philosophy. It's not just that my parents are doing it, that's why I'm doing it. So that is what was missing for me, the friendship with the devotees. And when I was able to have that friendship, I felt like my life was more complete. I realized that everyone, mostly people in life, want two things. They want something they get satisfaction out of doing, some kind of activity, and they want friends with whom they can share that happiness. And so what Prabhupada has given us, he has given us activity of chanting and dancing and eating prasadam, which all of us enjoy doing. And the amazing thing is we also have other devotees or friends with whom we can share that happiness with. So that is what made this process complete and made it so appealing to me. Okay, so now we can get into the pastime. When Krishna grew up a little more, he began to turn himself backside up. He did not merely lie down on his back. And another function was observed by Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, Krishna's first birthday. They arranged for Krishna's birthday ceremony, which is still observed by all followers of the Vedic principles. Krishna's birthday ceremony is observed in India by all Hindus, irrespective of different sectarian views. It's amazing that we get a national holiday in India. At least in school, we always had a day for Janmashtami. That you didn't have to find a weekend to come to the temple. You could just, it's a day off, so you can easily go to the temple. All the cowherd men and women were invited to participate in the jubilant celebration. A nice band played and the assembled people enjoyed it. All the learned brahmanas were invited and they chanted Vedic hymns for the good fortune of Krishna. During the chanting of the Vedic hymns and the playing of the bands, Krishna was bathed by Mother Yashoda. This bathing ceremony is technically called Abhishek, and even today this is observed in all the temples of Vrindavan on Janmashtami Day, or the birthday anniversary of Lord Krishna. And it's perfect to read this chapter anticipating the arrival or the birth of Krishna very soon. On this occasion, Mother Yashoda arranged to distribute a large quantity of grain, and first-class cows decorated with golden ornaments were made ready to be given in charity to the learned, respectable Brahmanas. Yashoda took her bath and dressed herself nicely, and taking child Krishna, duly dressed and bathed, on her lap, she sat down to hear the Vedic hymns chanted by the Brahmanas. While Mother Yashoda was listening to the chanting of the Vedic hymns, the child appeared to be falling asleep, and therefore she very silently laid him down on the bed. Being engaged in receiving all the friends, relatives, and residents of Vrindavan on that holy occasion, she forgot to feed the child milk. He was crying, being hungry, but Mother Yashoda could not hear him cry because of the various noises. The child, however, became angry because he was hungry and his mother was not paying attention to him. So he lifted his legs and began to kick his lotus feet just like an ordinary child. Baby Krishna had been placed underneath a hand-driven cart, and while he was kicking his legs, he accidentally touched the wheel of the cart and it collapsed. Various kinds of utensils and dishes made of brass and other metals had been piled up in the hand cart, and they all fell down with great noise. The wheel of the cart separated from the axle, and the spokes of the wheel were all broken and scattered hither and thither. Mother Yashoda and all the gopis, as well as Maharaj Nanda and the cowherd men, were astonished as to how the cart could have collapsed by itself. All the men and women who were assembled for the holy function crowded around and began to suggest how the cart might have collapsed. No one could ascertain the cause, but some small children who were entrusted to play with baby Krishna informed the crowd that it was due to Krishna's striking his feet against the wheel. They assured the crowd that they had seen how it happened with their own eyes, and they strongly asserted the point. Some were listening to the statement of the small children, but others said, "How can you believe the statements of these children?" The cowherd men and women could not understand that the all-powerful personality of Godhead was lying there as a baby, and that he could do anything. Both the possible and impossible were in his power. While the discussion was thus going on, baby Krishna cried. Without remonstration, Mother Yashoda picked the child up on her lap and called the learned Brahmanas to chant holy Vedic hymns to counteract the evil spirits. At the same time, she allowed the baby to suck her breast. If a child sucks the mother's breast nicely, it is to be understood that he is out of all danger. After this, all the stronger cowherd men put the broken cart in order, and all the scattered things were set up as nicely as before. The Brahmanas thereafter offered oblations to the sacrificial fire with yogurt, butter, kusha grass, and water. They worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the good fortune of the child. Before we continue reading, does anyone have any comments or questions? Any other pastime they want to share?
That's a reflection about what you were mentioning that you grew up in a family of boys, and you were chanting, but you still didn't find that was your path. And then after that, when you said that that was not your path, you went out there and with your friends, and the material energy caught you up. So my understanding of this is that happens a lot with some of the children in our Krishna consciousness. Some of them fortunately come back. Like I was in Mayapur and I talked to one boy who grew up in the Gurukula. He came to New York and later on he joined the gangs. He was actually, you probably heard, he was in the podcast. Yeah. And then he was telling me all the things that happened, but later he came back. So that brings me to the point of Krishna actually says in the Bhagavad Gita, Purusha prakritistohi bhunkte prakriti jangunan karanang guna sangasya sadasad joni janmasu. That the living entity in this material world, in this conditional world, follows the way of life, meeting good and bad. So my reflection was that even when you are in the Krishna consciousness process, you still have the independence of the free will to choose the right or the wrong. And sometimes maybe if you you choose wrongly, but because of the training with your parents and devotees, that comes back again. That's kind of mercy that is still there. And you choose that and you came back. Yeah. So you were fortunate, but unfortunately also we have many devotees who they haven't come back yet. Yeah. Maybe someday, we hope. Yeah. So that was It's like shocking that you can be within, like right now we're in the temple and we're following what we're supposed to do, we're listening to the class, but still the mind is like trying to trick you that maybe something out there is better.
Yeah.
That independence, so
Yeah.
free will is there, so we have to be careful.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that point. I surely think it as good fortune. That reminds me of this bhajan by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like, ki jane ki bole, like, I don't know what has created my good fortune. Like, yeah, I don't know what created the good fortune, but it could certainly be, like, knowingly or unknowingly, when you serve the devotees, that creates the good fortune that brings us back. Like, even though I did not appreciate like doing it fully, but that is the power of like the process. Like Prabhupada brings up this analogy that if this electric line going, like carrying electricity, you don't have to know what it does to you, but if you touch it, like the power, like you feel the shock. Similarly, knowingly or unknowingly, when we serve the devotees, when we hear about like Krishna's name, it has so much power that kind of creates the good fortune in us, that even though we might be wanting to go away, it gives us an impetus to come back. But I also appreciate the point that it's all about free will. Like the individual living entity has to make that choice himself. Even though so much security, so much good fortune might be created, if one knowingly wants to like drink poison and wants to go away, like I think can force to bring him back. Thank you for mentioning your reflection. Okay, I'll continue reading. The Brahmanas who were present at that time were all qualified because they were not envious. They never indulged in any untruthfulness. They were never proud, they were non-violent, and they never claimed any false prestige. They were all bona fide Brahmanas, and there was no reason to think that the blessings would be useless. With firm faith in the qualified Brahmanas, Nanda Maharaj took his child on his lap and bathed him in water mixed with various herbs, while the Brahmanas chanted hymns for the Rig, Yajur, and Samavedas. It is said that without being a qualified Brahmana, one should not read the mantras of the Vedas. Here is the proof that Brahmanas were qualified with the Brahmanical symptoms. Maharaj Nanda also had full faith in them. Therefore, they were allowed to perform the ritualistic ceremonies by chanting the Vedic mantras. There are many different varieties of sacrifices recommended for different purposes, but the mantras are all to be chanted by qualified Brahmanas. And because in this age of Kali such qualified Brahmanas are not available, all Vedic ritualistic sacrifices are forbidden. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore recommended only one kind of sacrifice in this age, namely the Sankirtan Yajna, or chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As the Brahmanas chanted the Vedic hymns and performed the ritualistic ceremonies for the second time, Nanda Maharaj again gave them huge quantities of grain and many cows. All the cows which are given in charity were covered with nice gold-embroidered garments, and the horns were bedecked with golden rings. The hooves were covered with silver plate, and there were garlands of flowers. He gave so many cows just for the welfare of his wonderful child, and the Brahmanas in return bestowed their heartfelt blessings. And the blessings offered by the able Brahmanas were never to be baffled. One day, shortly after the ceremony, when Mother Yashoda was patting her baby on her lap, the baby felt too heavy. And being unable to carry him, she unwillingly placed him on the ground. After a while, she became engaged in household affairs. At that time, a servant of Kamsa's known as Trinavarta, as instructed by Kamsa, appeared there in the shape of a whirlwind. He picked the child up on his shoulders and raised a great dust storm all over Vrindavan, covering everyone's eyes. Within a few moments, the whole area of Vrindavan became so densely dark that no one could see himself or anyone else. During this great catastrophe, but the Yashoda could not see her baby who had been taken away by the whirlwind, and she cried very piteously. She fell down on the ground exactly like a cow who had just lost her calf. When Mother Yashoda was so piteously crying, all the cowherd women immediately came and began to look for the baby, but they were disappointed and could not find him. The Trinavarta demon went high into the sky with baby Krishna on his shoulder. But the baby assumed such a weight that suddenly the demon could not go any further, and he had to stop his whirlwind activities. Baby Krishna made himself heavy and began to weigh down the demon, catching hold of his neck. Trinavarta felt the baby to be as heavy as a big mountain, so he tried to get out of his clutches, but he was unable to do so, and his eyes popped out from their sockets. Wow. Crying very fiercely, he fell down to the ground of Vrindavan and died. The demon fell exactly like Tripurashura, who was pierced by the arrow of Lord Shiva. Trinavarta hit a stone slab and his limbs were smashed. His body became visible to all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. When the gopis saw the demon killed and child Krishna very happily playing on his body, they immediately picked Krishna up with great affection. The cowherd men and women became very happy to get back their beloved child Krishna. At that time, they began to talk about how wonderful it is that the demon had taken away the child to devour him, but could not do so. Instead, he fell down dead. Some of them supported the situation. This is proper because those who are too sinful die from the sinful reactions, and child Krishna is pious. Therefore, he is safe from all kinds of fearful situations. And we too must have performed great sacrifice in our previous lives, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, giving great wealth in charity and acting philanthropically for the great general welfare of men. Because of such pious activities, the child is safe from all danger. The gopis assembled there spoke among themselves. What sort of austerities and penances we must have undergone in our previous lives? We must have worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, offered different kinds of sacrifices, made charities and performed many welfare activities for the public such as growing banyan trees and excavating wells. As a result of these pious activities, we have gotten back our child even though he was supposed to be dead. Now he has come back to enliven his relatives. After observing such wonderful happenings, Nanda Maharaj began to think of the words of the Vasudeva again and again. So Vasudeva had, kind of don't remember exactly what Vasudeva had told Nanda Maharaj, but he kind of warned him of the dangers that were to come in Vrindavan. Does anyone remember any more of what Vasudeva told Nanda Maharaj when they met for the first time?
Pay the taxes, then maybe you should go back right away because I think there's going to be some problems back in your town there.
Yeah, so that was coming to Nanda Maharaj's Nanda Maharaj's mind that there's something happening that I'm not aware of. After this incident, when Yashoda was once nursing a child and patting him with great affection, there streamed a profuse supply of milk from her breast, and when she opened the mouth of the child with her fingers, she suddenly saw the universal manifestation with his mouth. She saw within the mouth of Krishna the whole sky, including the luminaries, stars in all directions, the sun, moon, fire, air, seas, islands, mountains, river, forests, and all other moving and non-moving entities. When Mother Yashoda saw this, her heart began to throb, and she murmured within herself, "How wonderful this is!" She could not express anything but simply close her eyes. She was absorbed in wonderful thoughts. Krishna, showing the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead even when lying down on the lap of his mother, proves that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether he is manifested as a child on the lap of his mother or as a charioteer on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The concoction of the impersonalists that one can become God by meditation or by some artificial material activities is herewith declared false. God is always God in any condition or status, and the living entities are always the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They can never be equal to the inconceivable supernatural power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 7th chapter of Krishna, the salvation of Trinavarta. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I think this incident happens twice of Mother Yashoda seeing the whole universe inside the mouth of Krishna. And this is just happened like on a random day, but we all have heard the other pastime where Krishna is playing with his friends and suddenly they come running to him and say that, Mother Yashoda, Krishna has eaten dirt. And then someone else would tell the story better. But then, so Mother Yashoda is worried, and then I think she asked his brother Balram. And anyways, Krishna denied it. It's just like, we have the children's rhyme like, Johnny, Johnny, yes Papa eating sugar, no Papa. So like that Krishna is saying, no, I do not like eat any dirt. Like, what are you talking about? These people, they're just like, want to like give me a bad name. And then so Mother Yashoda asked him to open his mouth. Like, open your mouth. And then when he opens his mouth, then Mother Yashoda sees all this like wonderful things. She sees the entire universe, the stars, the sun, the moon, and also its zoomed out version. And then slowly she starts seeing earth, and on that there is like Bharatvarsha and there is Vrindavan, and then she sees baby Krishna like playing and herself also, and then she gets bewildered. And I think for some time she starts thinking that maybe my child is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then Krishna does not want that feeling to come in her mind. So he again makes that side go away. But this is just to remind us that what Prabhupada says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's never as impersonalists say, we are all God and right now we're just covered by Maya. It's like a cloud has covered the sun. But once we uncover that, we're again going to be like God. But Prabhupada is saying that that is not true. God is always God. Even when he is a kid, when he's a child laying on his mother's lap, or he's a charioteer serving his devotee in the battle, he's always God. Yes, like we said in the beginning, hearing Krishna's pastimes, just reading about it brings us so much happiness, brings us so much jubilation. And the way Prabhupada has narrated the story with all the little details of what Krishna did, and then what the children told, and no one believes them because they all think that we are pious people, and none of them want to think that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They feel like it's just a regular child. We are so fortunate we have such a beautiful child in our village, and they're all attracted to him. But they just continue on that natural attraction. They don't try to philosophize and think that what else is happening behind the scenes. They just think that we are pious people, we are so fortunate. We must have dug wells, we must have erected banyan trees, we must have given in charity, and that's why our child is safe. And that's what Krishna wants. Krishna just wants to be a kid. He just wants to be taken care of and have that loving relationship of his elders. He does not want them to treat him as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. He wants that rasa of them taking care of him. So he's very happy that we might think that what are these people talking about? We don't engage in such pious activities externally, just do that. We don't just go out and feed the homeless and think that we're doing so much pious activities that it is giving us that is not the cause of us coming to Krishna consciousness. But these villagers are so simple-hearted. They feel we must have done something. This is also their humility, that we must have done something pious. And that's why our child is safe from all danger. But I also appreciate this point that Prabhupada made, that they wanted the child to be safe. That's why they get all qualified brahmanas and to get them to chant mantras for Krishna's safety. And the brahmanas, if anyone remembers, what was their one prominent quality? They were not envious. And yesterday we were hearing from Brigubadi Prabhu that we could all claim that we are not envious. That, I'm not envious of Krishna. But what does that actually mean? That it's in a subtle form that enviousness is there, and that's why we have come to this material world. I was just thinking today while playing mridanga that I have been in that mindset before, when I just wanted to enjoy the activity of playing mridanga. I want it to be really good, so I get all the attention. People appreciate that, he plays mridanga well, and so I would enjoy being in that limelight. And that is in a way being envious of Krishna, because I'm not happy that Krishna is up there and everyone's worshipping Krishna, everyone's thinking of him. I want some attention to myself. And it's kind of humbling when you realize that we are also, I am personally envious of Krishna, that's why I want some personal attention on myself. Instead of serving the kirtan, I'm trying to get some personal sense enjoyment out of the activity. Even if it is devotional service, I'm trying to use it for sense gratification. So that is one quality, topmost quality of brahmanas, that they're not envious. And they were not proud, they're non-violent. And usually we take Brahmana initiation, we are given these instruction, these are the qualities of the brahmanas that we should try to emulate. Anyways, so these are a few thoughts I had, and it was wonderful reading this chapter. I would like to hear if anyone has questions, suggestions, comments.
Yeah, on that point, not envious. I made the point yesterday that the Brahmins and devotees in general, their characteristic is satatam kirtayantamam. That's the symptom of somebody who's not envious, that they're always glorifying Krishna. As you said, it's not enough just to, you think, I'm not envious, and you're just silent. No, if you're really not envious, then you'll be engaged in satatam kirtayantamam, always glorifying Krishna. Yeah. Another thought I had about that, Krishna with Trinavarta. So in the Nectar of Devotion, actually it's in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I can't remember exactly which chapter. There's the description of all these mystic opulences, mystic powers. And Prabhupada mentions it also in the Nectar of Devotion, in maybe the first chapter. And there's like Anima, Mahima, Lagima, Isita, Vasita, etc., Kamavayasa. So, and it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam chapter where it's talked about that these are primordial potencies of Krishna, and the living entities have them, can develop them to a degree. And that's what yogis do. So, like, in other words, when you understand about that, this pastime doesn't sound so, like, totally miraculous. It is far out, but it's understandable in that context. In other words, Krishna, has unlimited power to make himself heavier, as mentioned there, and he also had unlimited power to make himself lighter. I mean, if he stayed heavy, he'd smash into the ground like Trinavarta. So he's got control over that. He made himself heavy, and then right at the right moment, he makes himself really light, and he doesn't get smashed like Trinavarta. It's all it fits into that picture of reality, when you understand about these mystic potencies like that. And at least for me, it makes it kind of more understandable and more believable. It's not like you're just believing in some mythology or something like fairy story.
Before Prabhu says, I just wanted to mention that knowing about that this all is different kinds of siddhis are part of Krishna's, like is original in Krishna. So that makes us understand when we see a human being do those kind of feats, we're not blown away, like just because someone can produce like a jewel out of thin air or an apple out of thin air or can do some kind of mystic siddhi, can walk on water, we don't necessarily think that they are God, because God has all these mystic opulences in full, and if a person can just express one, like that does not mean that he's God. It's a minute portion, so being aware of this like knowledge like kind of helps us understand and not get bewildered when someone displays these potencies.
So, another thought that came to me was that Krishna is described as the wonderful wonder of wonders. So every little thing he does, everything he does, it causes a wonder. And in a conversation that he has with many mystics and sages and brahmanas, Krishna was glorifying them. And you can imagine Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, Sanakumara, Kashyapa, Maitreya, Vrigu, Brihaspati, Devala, Sita, and many thousands, the whole universe. So he's glorifying them. And then they said, Krishna, we are considered to be the leaders of human society, knowing like everything that it needs to help human beings. He said, yet we are totally bewildered. We are bewildered about your pastimes and activities. You come as a human being and you perform amazing pastimes. So that's, like wonders. Wonderful Krishna performing a lot of wonders and wonderful things.
There's a chapter also in 10th canto, Wonderful Krishna. And reading the chapter always makes me so happy. Like, I don't know, it's after 20s or 30s.
And that actually happens not just to the great sages, it happens even to us in life, in our daily life. Through his energy of Krishna, we get amazing things if we just pay attention to every little thing. Especially when, like we encounter people, when you deal with people. And every single soul or individual soul has something there. And then you just get amazed about how it's working through the mind, the brain, and your exchanges.
That makes me think that it's really wonderful when we get to know devotees of how they came to Krishna consciousness. And there used to be these articles in Back to Godhead, like how I came to Krishna consciousness. And when you read these stories, when you talk about, like, get to hear from your friends, it just amazes you, like how Krishna, his reach is far out, like how he arranged things so that this particular person could come to this process, and it amazes you and it touches you. And also, like, going back to the point of like friendship with devotees, I know there's Vritrasura who in his prayers asks to Krishna that like he asks for like some friendship with the Lord's devotees, and that is also very striking to me of how important that aspect is of friendship with devotees. We need our seniors, we need also some juniors, but also very importantly we need our peers. I just wanted to like mention in this point that when I was in Florida, I felt like I developed a lot of friendships there, and the move to LA, it felt like for me and like my wife too, that we are leaving so many of our friends behind. Like, we were hankering for that, like can we get that again in LA? Like we need that. It's not just external devotee association, we need some meaningful relationships. And I personally feel like very happy like coming here and like getting to know like Shri Gopinath Prabhu and Nicholas and all Omkar and all these people in the ashram, that there's that mood of like serving each other, this mood of like pleasing each other, and with like pleasing words with your actions, and that opportunity is also here. And I just internally I feel very happy of like having come here, that I'm not missing out in any particular geographical location, but Krishna's here and Krishna's sweet devotees are here, so I'm just very happy.
Haribo, welcome.
Prabhupada ki.